The Employer Brand Challenge, building loyalty and attracting top talent.
Cool, so welcome everyone to the first fireside chat for today. We're going to be discussing the Employer Brand Challenge and building loyalty while attracting top talent. So joining me, I'm going to let her introduce herself before I introduce myself. So Nicole, over to you.
Hi, so I hope you can hear me. So can you hear me? We good? No. Yes. Okay. So I'm Nicole. I'm the HR manager for 10Bed Africa. New to the gaming industry in a sense of this is my third year in it and my first time speaking on a panel. So this should be fun.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. And for those who don't know me, I'm Gali Hartuv. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WarriorLab, management consultancy specializing in operations, B2C strategy, with a niche in VIP and loyalty programs. So to kick off, when we're talking about attracting and keeping top talent, it's never been more challenging or more important than where we are right now in the industry. I think we can agree, Nicole, that a strong employer brand goes beyond salaries and benefits. It's about creating that workplace where people feel valued and people feel engaged and inspired to stay. But in the competitive job market that we have right now, not just in Africa, but globally, I'd love to pick your brain on how companies can set themselves apart, just to start this conversation, and how do we really build loyalty in a workforce that has these evolving expectations?
Very interesting. Obviously, from an HR point of view, you need to understand your team. You need to understand the generation of your team. Or is your team predominantly a young generation, or are they in your mid-level generation or your older generation? Because I think the definition of loyalty is very different per the generation that you're looking at. So if your team is predominantly very young, you need to speak to their drivers. What are they looking for in a working environment? If your team is of your middle age, between 30 to 45, their drivers are a lot different. So you have to speak to the employee's driver, and once you understand that, you're gonna maximize the loyalty out of them. So to give you an example, when I speak of the generation of your team, your 20 to 30-year-olds, their drivers are very different to your older generation. So your younger guys are looking for money. They want minimal responsibility, a good amount of money, because my social life is important. Where your 30s, 35s to 45-year-olds, we're looking for work-life balance. We're looking for, obviously, money. Money is always a driver, I think, in any generation that you're speaking to. But in the same breath, if you speak to the driver, you're gonna maximize the loyalty out of your team. Because if you're looking at your younger guys, you can formulate your packages, your benefits, and your initiatives around what that generation is looking for. So if they're looking for money, you're gonna work your packages, your commission structures, your incentives, your benefits around what their drivers are. So they're not looking for maximum responsibility, they're looking for money. Then you've got your 30 to 45-year-olds who's looking for their young families, their young moms and dads, they're buying houses, they've got cars, a lot of different responsibilities. So they're looking for work-life balance, they're looking for hybrid, great, because I think Lena also spoke to that fact. The hybrid working model is, in our day and time, something that is desired. So your 30s to 45-year-olds are looking for that work-life balance. Obviously, the package is very important, but your benefits are then structured according to the generation's drivers. And if you're looking at your older generation, I mean, my dad has a very different understanding of what loyalty means than I do.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks 20 years, 30 years with a business is loyalty, where the younger generation is maybe 3, 4 years, that's what you're getting out of them.
Yeah. You know, I attended a seminar not too long ago that summarized exactly what you said about comparing generational mindset and how if you look back and you look at like the boomer generation, for example, the way that the seminar described it is that every generation has three priorities when it comes to work and how we approach work and where we see our social, personal, and professional commitments mixed together. And if you look at it like a podium, the way that they looked at it is the boomer generation was very simple. You have work, work, and work. And then you look into your next phase generation, your Gen X, and you're looking at work, work, and family. And then as you move into the millennial generation, it became work, family, and social. And then as we progressed over and you're looking more into Gen Z and the newer generations, work has completely dropped down to the bottom where you now have social, you have work, and then you have family. And it's very interesting to see this shifting focus in this generational divide. And the way that the seminar unpacked it was that if you can look at a generation, how do you look into those three priorities of personal, professional, etc., going from there? And I think that summarizes quite nicely exactly what you've just said. Now, to move the conversation forward, we look at loyalty as something that is earned. We look at loyalty as something that grows over time. And nowadays, like you mentioned, the 20-year commitment to a company, it's virtually non-existent.
Yeah,
you don't
it's
see it
unheard of.
anymore. I'd love to know from your side how we can try and break down those barriers as well when it comes to trying to preach loyalty and trying to attract top talent. How do we break down those barriers, firstly, in sourcing top talent, but how do we work on it from an employer's perspective?
I mean, from a business perspective, trying to source top talent, it's vital that you know what talent you need in every sector of your business. But to source the top talent is also tricky, dependent on your brand in the market. I think a lot of the times brands approach recruitment in a sense of I'm a brand, I'm a out there brand, everybody knows me, so I'm going to get the best out there. And it's not always the case. I think in particular the gambling industry can be very close-knit, but every other industry, whether you're in manufacturing or whatever it is, the communities are quite tight-knit. So your reputation in the market also determines what type of candidates you will get. If you've got a very amazing reputation in the industry, people want to work there. Your culture is great, your environment is great, your brand is great. People want to come to you. If your brand and your reputation has taken a knock in whatever sense of the word spreads. People talk. We sit and we interact with other colleagues in the industry, and then we hear and we're like, maybe I don't want to go there. So I think it's very important for the business to also consider the reputation they have in the market.
I think to give a more internal perspective, especially in the work that I'm doing as a consultant, when you're going into these operations, and everything you said is absolutely correct, having that reputation and that brand, people, for example, if you look at Amazon, people want to go work for Amazon because it's a brand that people know, there's credibility. Google, people want to go because you have that on your CV and people go, oh my God, you work for Google, you work for Amazon. It's like that big pushing point. But the reality is when you're looking internally, the brand is one component, but it's short-lived. All I need is 1 to 2 years working in your company and I'm moving on. Yeah. Because you have the credibility, you've done what you need to do, on to the next project where now that I have that stamp of your brand on my CV, I can demand better salaries, I can demand better perks, there's that credibility. But you don't want to be a business that is used as a stepping stone purely because you have good branding and good recognition in the public space. Now, from a consultancy standpoint, when I go in and I work with operations and I build these strategies and different KPIs, the reality it comes down really to what does the employee engage with once they're in the company? What is the employee experience beyond the brand? Because that's your word of mouth. You could be an incredible Google in the iGaming space or the Amazon in the iGaming space, but if your environment is not conducive to a healthy workspace, you're never going to be retaining people beyond that 1 to 2 years.
100%.
And we see that how these systemic problems stem from poor management, the whole mindset of people work for leaders and they work for like good managers. Companies don't drive employees away. Bad managers drive people away. I mean, we hear these lines all the time. But the reality of it is that if you have a poor operational structure, very confusing or overly complicated KPIs, goals and targets that are out of reach, that you're never reaching your target, you just get a demotivated workforce. So yes, you might be working for a wonderful company and a brilliant brand, but if you don't have a conducive work environment where your employees are working towards something and they understand what they're working towards, you're never going to be retaining employees.
No, for sure. And also, I mean, 100%, I agree with you in that sense. But in the same breath, I say to you, learn the demographic and the generation of your team, because that's you're gonna formulate your packages, your benefits, your initiatives around what generation your team predominantly is making up, and based on that, you're going to see your older generation might not need as much recognition, where your younger generation is looking for the star.
Yeah.
Good job, you did great. So your approach is going to be different, and that's how you're building your work culture and your environment. You're tailor making it, in a sense, to the generation of your team.
Yeah.
To speak to their drivers, to speak to that generation, and
Yes.
what works for them, and what is going to make this generation of employee. Because I know in the younger generation, I'm only going to get 3, 4, maybe 5 years out of them. So how do I maximize that 5 years? How do I keep this employee with us for 5 years?
Yeah. Now you see, that is the exact mindset that if you look at general operations, that's the mindset that's missing at the table. HR is creating these fantastic and proactive initiatives that are trying to combat employee attrition. But when you look at the operational discussion and you look at functionality, in many structures in operators, for example, HR is sitting over here as one designated function that's meant to be impartial and therefore siloed. But then you have the broader operation that's sitting over here in the day-to-day, following the rules and processes and KPIs and whatever. And when things don't go according to plan, no problem. We'll report it into HR. Here's your personal development plan. Let's get you onto this improvement process, and we'll monitor whether you succeed or not. And maybe you need to go back to training or whatever it is. There's ways to combat this process of, if you don't follow this process, then HR. It should be a case of, how does HR be a part of that conversation, get them into the room to understand the day-to-day process outside of the scope of human admin and the running of the human process of an environment. But at the end of the day, operators need to be open to the idea that, yes, these aren't your day-to-day player experts. These aren't your risk experts. These are human experts. And we need to treat HR as part of that conversation, so that it's not a case of us versus them.
For sure. And also, I'm trying to break the concept of what HR means in a space of a working environment. HR isn't supposed to be oh my gosh, I'm terrified, or I'm now in trouble. I've done something and now I'm in the hot seat. HR doesn't always have to be that. I think HR is a partner to the business in the sense of, we're there for the people. We're there to make sure that the culture is amazing. The people are spoken to, and their drivers are spoken to. So HR is not that sitting in their tower, just smashing the gavel at every wrong thing that happens. HR is also supposed to be the carer. I'm interested in you as a person. I'm interested in your growth. What can you give the business, and how can the business give that back to you? And what you're saying about from a business and a management point of view, you have to allow HR to actually have that space to be for the people, but also be for the business. They're there for both.
I'll give you a fantastic example of that actually in practice. So very recently with one of my clients, we ran what we called the VIP Roadshow. Now, I would say most environments, you have HR roadshows. This is the business. Welcome to the company. This is who we are, our history, blah, blah, blah. But very seldomly do you find departmental roadshows. And those roadshows are about showcasing, for example, in this case, what the VIP department does, who we are, the different opportunities within our department, the different growth potentials that you can work towards. And as a collaboration with HR, with this client in particular, the head of VIP and the head of HR teamed up together about showcasing the VIP department as a growth point to retain customer support. And we showcased the VIP program, we showcased the opportunities of developing into a role. And what was the streamlined direction? If you're interested in growing into a role a year from now, 6 months from now, or you have an interest in a direction to become a VIP onboarding specialist or a coach or a QA or whatever it is, speak to your team lead, speak to HR, put yourself out there and allow us to create this roadmap of how we can train and develop you to move into that direction. And these type of strategies are not only showcase what HR is involved in, also showcase the growth potential for employee retention. And that leads into your brand awareness. It leads into the maturity of HR. It leads into attracting new talent. You know, beyond just here's 1,000 Rand for finding a friend and you referred them successfully and they passed probation. You know, we need more to attract talent and show talent that this is the opportunity in front of you and lay that roadmap out transparently. You know, I think in that sense, and it also brings me to the point I wanted to ask you, how would you go about, as the HR expert on the stage, leveraging a workforce to act as your brand ambassador?
Leveraging a workforce to act as brand ambassadors. I think from that aspect, you know, it's making your employees feel I'm not only working for a business. This is my business as much as it's the owners of the business. You know, we're here in this. I'm not just an employee. I'm not just a cog in this wheel. This is my business too. If the business thrives, I'm thriving. And if the company is supporting them, you know, you look after me, I look after you. This is not just about a brand. This is not just about hitting targets and reaching amazing turnovers. This is my business too. And if an employee feels that they're proud of where they're working, they're going to be throwing your name out in every direction. They are going to speak to their friends about it. They're going to be bragging to everybody about, oh, I'm working for this company because I feel it's mine too. And if you can get your employees to feel that way, your business will be far more exposed in that sense because it's mine too. What I'm achieving for the business, it's my success as much as the owner of the business's success.
Yeah. I think that mindset actually also extends into recruitment as well, because a lot of the time recruitment, when uninformed, acts almost like a tick box exercise. And we all know that that's not an efficient way to recruit and find talent. If anything, it's temporary. I think applying what you've just said in the recruitment mindset and getting those recruiters involved and understanding beyond just job description is also a crucial point to play. And I think there's not enough of that right now. And you often see that between utilizing agency versus in-house, where there's a disconnect somewhere along there. But the most successful operators are the one that actually brings the recruiter into the room, pitches them on exactly the type of candidate and the aptitudes and the types of people that we want to fill the role. Not just do they have experience? Are they the right fit for the culture, for the business, for us? And I think that that's something as well that we need to work on, not just as an industry, but in general. Businesses need to be more receptive to, firstly, external help, but at the same time about bringing the right people together to find that talent. Not just, here's the job description, we have 5 openings, go fill them. You know, that's where KPIs on your recruitment team play a massive part. I think to end off in the last minute, if you could highlight one area that brand or employee brand or business brands could do better, what would the one area be that you would recommend shifting a focus towards?
I think what we can do better in just in any industry, I'm not even speaking about any particular industry. What I think industries can do better at is shifting their focus from being, yes, goal driven, we are money driven, but in the shift of time, our generation needs to feel valued. A valued employee takes your business further. If you're for the business is for you. And if you make your employee feel valued, a valued employee takes you the whole way.
And I think from my side, the one point that I would highlight would be collaboration. Collaborate outside of the box. Don't just look at the job function and go, right, HR can go manage that and operations can go manage that. Think out the box, collaborate between departments, because you'll be surprised by the number of ideas and the differences in perspective that are going to actually support your long-term loyalty of your employees and future retention of future hires as you develop those employees collaboratively, not in isolation and not in those silos that are currently predetermined as you enter an organization.
100% agree with you.
So then on that note, guys, I just want to thank Nicole for being here, for
Thanks
sharing
so
her
much.
opinion. And thank you everyone for listening, and enjoy the last day of Sigma. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.